You know, in the world of currency markets, things move fast. And every so often, one currency doesn't just win the week, it absolutely dominates, leaving everyone else scrambling. And that's exactly what happened this week. So, what created this perfect storm? Let's get into it. So, if you had to guess, right now, which currency came out on top this week? The US dollar? Maybe the euro? The yen? Well, whatever you're thinking, the real answer is probably going to surprise you.
And there it is, the Australian dollar. But what's really wild about this chart isn't just that the Aussie is at the top. It's the huge gap between it and the US dollar, which was actually the weakest performer of the week. Talk about a complete flip.
So just how big was the surge? How dominant was the Aussie really? Let's dig into the actual numbers because they tell a pretty incredible story. Okay, get this. This wasn't some quick spike. The Aussie started the week at the very top with a strength reading of 120, and it just stayed there. It never once dipped below 110. Now that is what you call staying power.
Right. A rally this strong doesn't just happen by accident. You have to have a few big things all line up perfectly. And for the Aussie, this whole thing was built on three really powerful pillars of strength, all working together.
And here are the big three. First, you have a boom in something called carry trades. We'll get to what that means. Second, a huge, sudden shift in geopolitics that made investors feel a lot more optimistic. And third, a major rally in commodity prices. All three of these came together to create that perfect storm. Let's break each one down. So, pillar number one, the carry trade. Now, it sounds complicated, but the idea is actually pretty simple. Imagine you can borrow money really cheap in one currency, like the Japanese yen, where interest rates are super low, and then you take that money and buy a currency where interest rates are high, like the Australian dollar. You just get to pocket the difference in interest. It's a hugely popular move when markets are feeling calm.
And just how popular are we talking? Well, these carry trades have returned a massive 12% just since the start of the year. That's the best start we've seen in 3 years. With returns like that, money just flooded into high-yield currencies, and the Aussie dollar was right there, first in line.
Okay, next up, geopolitics. The week started off pretty tense, with the situation between the US and Iran heating up. That had investors running for so-called safe haven assets. But then, bam! Midweek, a ceasefire was announced, and that just completely flipped the script. All that fear turned to optimism almost overnight, and suddenly, riskier currencies like the Aussie were looking really attractive again.
Now for our third pillar, which builds on the others, commodities. Those same tensions in the Gulf that had investors on edge, they also pushed the price of crude oil way up, and that set off a chain reaction, sparking a rally across pretty much the entire commodity market. Now, since Australia is a huge exporter of natural resources, its whole economic outlook just got a lot brighter. And when the big banks, like Bank of America, start saying they're bullish, well, that's just like pouring gasoline on the fire.
But the Aussie's incredible strength is really only half the story. To get the full picture, you have to look at its biggest dance partner, the US dollar. The two are completely connected.
I mean, this slide really says it all, doesn't it? While the Aussie was on this smooth, stable ride up, the US dollar went on a crazy roller coaster, a huge V-shaped reversal. That drop in the USD was kind of the anchor for the entire market's movement, and the Aussie was just in the perfect spot to catch the updraft from its weakness.
And this quote just nails it. A weaker US dollar is like a green light for pretty much every other asset out there. And for a currency like the Aussie, which tends to move more dramatically than the rest of the market, this shift was like putting it on rocket fuel.
So, that's the story of how the Aussie had its incredible week. But the million-dollar question now, for anyone in the markets, is, can this last? So let's look at what you need to be watching in the week ahead.
It really all comes down to two big things. First, is the market going to stay calm enough for those super profitable carry trades to keep going? Because if things get shaky, that money could flow out just as fast as it flowed in. And second, what happens next with the US-Iran situation and commodity prices? Those were the fundamental drivers, so their next move is absolutely critical. So there you have it. The Aussie dollar rode a perfect storm of booming carry trades, calmer geopolitics, and surging commodities. Everything just lined up perfectly. The question now is, was this just a temporary, once-in-a-blue-moon alignment of the stars, or is this the start of something bigger? We will definitely be watching.